October 1962. The Caribbean Sea lay calm under a fading sun, but beneath its placid surface, currents hid secrets that could ignite the world. Radar screens aboard destroyers blinked erratically, blips appearing and disappearing without explanation. Officers leaned over consoles, whispering in tension, while messages crackled through radios, some never reaching Washington. Men scribbled in secret logs, noting singular disappearance. Every signal lost felt like a warning from an unseen hand. The horizon stretched endlessly, and the weight of potential annihilation pressed on every soul. Silence became its own language, heavy and suffocating, as each heartbeat echoed the fragility of peace. High above, U-2 pilots scanned the jungles of Cuba with high-powered lenses. Dark silhouettes of missile installations emerged like silent sentinels amidst the mist. Pilots reported fleeting flashes, reflections, or something else entirely. Some logs recorded fate unknown for certain reconnaissance signals, messages swallowed by static. Anxiety thickened as strict orders repeated, "Stand down. Do not engage." Every minute felt eternal. The clouds seemed to hold their breath, and every shadow along the horizon whispered threats the eyes could not fully comprehend. Below decks, sailors murmured of strange lights dancing over the water at night. Glimmers vanished before anyone could investigate. Stories spread of figures moving along missile sites. Some called them ghost sentinels guarding forbidden installations. Instruments hinted at danger men could neither see nor confront. Conversations became muted, punctuated by anxious glances and the clatter of boots on metal decks. Every heartbeat was measured, every movement deliberate. History balanced on a knife's edge. The line between action and catastrophe, thinner than a single thread. Orders came down with a weight that chilled even seasoned officers. The President, the Joint Chiefs, and the fleet commanders communicated in cryptic codes. Decisions carried consequences beyond imagination. Missiles stood poised, silent, yet screaming through the lens of reconnaissance cameras. Some pilots swore they saw shadows that didn't belong, shadows moving against the wind. Signals disappeared mid-transmission, and yet no one could act. The world's fate seemed trapped in a limbo of command and hesitation. Night fell over the Caribbean. The sea reflected a sky swollen with stars, yet nothing seemed ordinary. Radar blips danced like ghosts, rising and falling, sometimes forming patterns that no human mind could decipher. Men aboard ships whispered tales of phantom ships, glimpsed on instruments, vessels that vanished before anyone could confirm them. Journals noted odd phenomena, strange noises, metallic echoes across the waves. Every man wondered if they were seeing reality or the prelude to something unexplainable. The tension was a living thing wrapping around the fleet like mist. A reconnaissance flight reported interference, camera shutters, jammed film rolls fogged mysteriously. Officers recorded unexplained phenomena in logs that would later vanish from archives. The sun rose, revealing shadows in the jungle that shifted unnaturally. Pilots recalled fleeting figures near missile silos. Orders forbade engagement. Men obeyed, eyes wide, hearts pounding. Some whispered that the very air carried a presence, a silent observer testing humanity's nerve. History's pulse quickened. Every breath became a negotiation with fate. On-board sailors noted subtle irregularities. Instruments that should have hummed steadily stuttered. Compasses wavered. Magnetic fields fluctuated inexplicably. Some swore they saw phantom lights dart along the waterline. Others recounted distant sounds, mechanical and organic at once. Secret orders forbade investigation, forcing men to witness without interference. Every glance at the horizon invited more questions than answers. Anxiety compounded with exhaustion. The Caribbean seemed alive with secrets. The world on the brink, yet unaware. Reports from Washington were delayed. Some messages arrived with cryptic errors. Stand down repeated in dispatches, but accompanying instructions were missing. Officers compared notes in hushed tones. Pilots spoke of strange optical phenomena over the missile sites. Logs referenced singular disappearance of signals equipment, even entire reconnaissance frames. Whispers of unseen watchers circulated. The fear was palpable, heavy like the tropic air before a storm. Men understood only that they were actors on a stage scripted by uncertainty. The fleet moved cautiously. Sonar pinged against empty depths. Radar painted fleeting images of unknown origin. Pilots saw flashes beyond the missile silos, shapes that seemed to mimic human motion. Nightmares became topic of conversation. Sleep came in fits, haunted by flashes and whispers. Instruments failed at critical moments, leaving men relying on intuition. And yet the order remained: do nothing. Watch, report, survive. Every second was measured in suspense. Every glance toward Cuba carried the weight of unspeakable potential. By the end of that week, the tension had hardened into legend among the crews. Stories of vanished signals, flickering lights, and shadowy figures merged with official reports. Photographs captured the jungle, yet some frames were mysteriously blank. Diaries contradicted official logs. Some whispered that unseen forces had manipulated outcomes, saving the world from catastrophe by intervention invisible. The Caribbean remained calm, masking the fury it had almost hosted. Men would remember the silence, the unspoken dread, the invisible line they walked between war and peace. And though history would record missiles and orders, it could never fully capture the ghosts of October 1962. October 1962. The world seemed to hold its breath. In Washington, the Situation Room buzzed with urgent whispers. Advisors and generals clustered around maps, tracing every possible path a missile could take. The president's eyes were steady, yet shadows of doubt lingered beneath his brow. Across the Atlantic, Soviet communications crackled with tension. Premier Khrushchev monitored the island, closely aware that a single misstep could ignite global catastrophe. Meanwhile, in Cuba, dense jungles concealed the monstrous silhouettes of newly installed missiles. Engineers and soldiers moved with grim purpose, aware that discovery could mean immediate destruction. Intelligence reports streamed back to U.S. headquarters. Some verified, some conflicting, and some simply vanished, leaving gaps in understanding that only fear could fill. At sea, the U.S. Navy established a quarantine line. Destroyers patrolled the water's engines, thrumming like a heartbeat in the deep. Submarines prowled beneath the waves, silent watchers in a liquid darkness. Officers scanned instruments obsessively, sonar pinging, radar sweeping the horizon. Every flicker of light, a possible threat. Men slept, little ate less, the weight of their orders pressing on every movement. Rumors spread among the crew of phantom vessels, sightings that never appeared on any chart. Even the stars seemed to tremble above reflections on the water, twisted by waves that held secrets no one could name. On the island itself, Cuban soldiers worked under the watchful eye of Soviet officers. Cranes lifted massive warheads, shadows stretching long across the jungle floor. Local villagers whispered of strange noises in the night. Footsteps too heavy for men alone, and lights that moved against the wind. Some said the missiles themselves seemed alive, humming with anticipation, as if aware of the tension enveloping the planet. Every glance from the tree line felt like an accusation. Every sound carried the weight of a world on edge. And yet life went on. Children playing in the distance, the clatter of daily chores, the normality of ordinary existence masking an extraordinary threat. Back in the skies, U-2 pilots navigated currents of air thick with uncertainty. Clouds obscured some targets. Sun glare reflected off metallic surfaces. Cameras clicked, film rolls exposed. Some rolls came back blank. Others revealed shadows that did not align with any known structure. Pilots logged every anomaly, scribbled notes about singular disappearances of signals of equipment that failed at the most critical moments. They questioned reality, the thin line between intelligence gathering and something else, something beyond protocol, beyond explanation. On board the aircraft carriers, crew members monitored every transmission. Every signal confirmed or lost was annotated with urgency. Officers compared cryptic reports. Unexplained event became a common phrase in logs. Some murmured of lights darting beneath the waves, shapes too fluid for human construction. Instruments stuttered as if resisting observation. Conversations were careful, each word weighed. A single misstep could mean confrontation, or worse. The line between myth and fact blurred as sailors began to sense the presence of something unspoken. A silent observer threading through the tension. In Washington, advisors debated responses endlessly. Some argued for immediate action, a strike to neutralize the threat. Others warned that any movement could escalate to nuclear war. Communications were delayed, sabotaged by bureaucracy or by forces unknown. Back-channel messages hinted at compromises, secret negotiations, threats veiled in diplomatic language. Even the most seasoned operatives admitted to sleepless nights haunted by flashes of what could happen if orders misfired. Diaries noted the surreal quality of the crisis, a world held hostage by human decision and perhaps by forces unseen. Meanwhile, families in Cuba went about their lives. Children ran through dusty streets. Markets bustled with barter and laughter. Yet in the shadows, the military installation loomed. The duality of ordinary life and extraordinary peril created a tension that seemed almost supernatural. Local folklore revived old stories, whispers of the watchers in the jungle spirits that would intervene to protect or punish. Soldiers laughed nervously at such tales, but in quiet moments some admitted they saw things, lights, movements, too odd to dismiss. The jungle itself became a character, breathing, watching, waiting. Across the Caribbean, the naval blockade tightened. Ships shifted positions as weather changed. Waves slapped against hulls carrying echoes of distant engines that may or may not exist. Officers took note of every anomaly. Unidentified radar contacts, vanishing sonar echoes, signals that returned altered or erased. Crew members slept fitfully. Dreams invaded by flashes of explosions, shadows, and whispers. Every dawn revealed the same calm waters, yet beneath the tension persisted. An invisible war waged in silence. High above, reconnaissance continued. Pilots documented missile sites, yet some photographs seemed incomplete. Edges of images blurred unnaturally. Some frames contained shadows where no equipment stood. Logs recorded fate unknown for certain targets. Messages sent to command sometimes returned empty or corrupted. The skies carried secrets as thick as clouds. Every flight risked detection, misinterpretation, catastrophe. Yet the orders remained clear: observe, report, stand down. The world depended on restraint and on the reliability of men facing uncertainty. By mid-October, the island, the sea, and the skies formed a web of tension. Each movement, each signal, each whisper mattered. Sailors spoke of uncanny phenomena, fleeting lights over the water, shadows moving in impossible ways. Pilots recounted flashes that seemed sentient. Even the most skeptical officers admitted unease. The combination of human strategy and something else created a liminal space between reality and myth, between action and paralysis. Every observer felt it, the weight of history poised to tip, and the fragile thread holding the world together. And so the Caribbean held its secret. A world on edge, Orders forbidding engagement, shadows dancing over missiles, lights vanishing into night, communications disappearing, human nerves stretched taut, folklore merging with fact, observers caught in a liminal state where anything seemed possible, the tension invisible but palpable threaded through sea, air, and land, and every man involved, whether commander, pilot, sailor, or local, knew that each heartbeat, each glance, each breath could tilt history toward annihilation. Yet the world waited, unaware, suspended in October 1962. October stretched on. The Caribbean remained deceptively calm, yet every instrument aboard the fleet hinted at unrest. Radar screens flickered unpredictably. Sonar echoes returned, distorted. Every officer knew that a single misreading could spark global catastrophe. Logs from the destroyers recorded strange anomalies. Some targets appeared, then vanished, leaving fate unknown scrawled across pages. Messages sent to Washington sometimes arrived corrupted, others never at all. The fleet moved with deliberate caution, engines humming through the night, each man acutely aware of the fragile line between observation and engagement. High above the island, U-2 pilots hovered over dense jungle. Their cameras clicked, capturing missile installations and the workers moving silently beneath canopies. Some photographs came back blank. Others revealed shadows that did not align with any known structure. Pilots noted fleeting flashes of light in the tree line. Reflections, or something else entirely. Logs referenced singular disappearance of equipment, of reconnaissance signals lost mid-transmission. Every flight carried the tension of men and machines facing uncertainty beyond protocol. On the decks below, sailors documented every anomaly. Lights flickering on the horizon, shadows gliding across the water, sonar pings behaving erratically. Some swore they saw vessels moving beneath the waves that had no record. Communications failed intermittently, as if the sea itself swallowed them. Diaries described unease, fatigue, and the eerie sensation of being observed. The crew grew hyper-aware of the rhythm of the ocean. Every wave, every reflection, every whisper of wind was analyzed. Suspicion merged with fear, fear with folklore. A living tension threading through every layer of the operation. Meanwhile, inside Washington, intelligence officers worked frantically to cross-check reports. Some satellite images contradicted reconnaissance photographs. Others disappeared into bureaucratic limbo. The president and advisors debated responses in hushed tones. Each option weighed for its risk of escalation. Some logs noted that certain communication channels ceased operation without explanation. Others hinted that messages had been intercepted, altered, or erased. The very systems designed to provide clarity became part of the mystery. A veil of uncertainty covered every decision and every heartbeat in the room. In Cuba, soldiers and engineers labored under the heavy gaze of Soviet officers. Cranes moved massive missiles into hidden silos, shadows stretching long in the midday sun. Villagers whispered of strange lights and unexplained noises in the night. Some spoke of ghostly figures moving among the silos watching. Soldiers laughed nervously, yet kept one eye on the trees. Every sound, every movement felt amplified. Each man sensed that the island itself was alive with tension. And yet everyday life continued, the hum of daily routines masking extraordinary peril. Back in the skies, reconnaissance flights reported anomalies. Cameras jammed at critical moments. Film rolls fogged or came back blank. Pilots scribbled notes about lost signals, equipment failures, and fleeting flashes of movement that had no logical source. Some reported lights that seemed to anticipate their path. Others logged sudden magnetic disruptions, interference with instruments, phenomena that defied physics. Orders forbade engagement. Yet the skies themselves seemed to test the restraint of those who observed. The thin line between fact and legend began to blur. Across the fleet, nightfall brought new uncertainties. Radar and sonar continued to behave unpredictably. Shadows appeared on the water that could not be explained by weather or waves. Crewmen whispered of phantom ships glimpsed briefly before vanishing. Lights blinked where no installation existed. Logs cataloged these events meticulously, using phrases like unexplained occurrence or singular disappearance. Fear settled into the metal and machinery. Every man on board knew that observation alone could not protect them from the unknown. The night held secrets that even experience could not explain. Diaries recovered decades later revealed the tension. Sailors noted the uncanny nature of the observations. Some lights moved in patterns that suggested intent. Shadows darted between islands with impossible speed. Communications blacked out at moments that might have demanded decisive action. Many officers questioned whether they were seeing reality or the effects of stress on perception. Yet the consistency of reports across different vessels and flights suggested something real, something beyond human understanding. In Washington, analysts worked to reconcile conflicting reports. Some logs conflicted with photographs. Some satellite feeds were inexplicably interrupted. Decision-makers faced choices clouded in uncertainty. Every report of a missile sighting or anomaly carried the potential for miscalculation. The official records noted the tension of the moment, some using terms like fate unknown, singular disappearance. Others recorded only cold numbers masking the underlying anxiety. History would later reveal that even the most precise data could not capture the weight of those days. Even among local populations in Cuba, stories circulated. Farmers spoke of lights in the jungle, strange sounds at night, and glimpses of figures that vanished before recognition. Soldiers and engineers dismissed these stories publicly, yet in private they acknowledged odd occurrences. Some said the jungle itself seemed alive, watching, shifting, hiding things from view. And in these layers of rumor, observation, and official record, a pattern emerged, a convergence of fact and folklore, each reinforcing the other, creating a tapestry of unease that enveloped the crisis. The Caribbean, the skies, and the island had become a living mosaic of tension. Radar blips and shadowy movements intertwined with whispered legends. Every observer, pilot, sailor, officer, civilian, carried a fragment of the unknown. Reports cataloged anomalies. Photographic evidence hinted at things beyond explanation. Across all layers, the same motif persisted, a silent, pervasive sense that the world teetered on the edge of catastrophe. Fact and folklore merged, and the Cuban Missile Crisis existed as both a historical record and a shadowed legend. Across the Caribbean, the same motifs repeated, shadows moving where no vessel existed, lights appearing and vanishing without explanation, sonar echoes returning distorted, messages lost mid-transmission. Pilots and sailors began to whisper in unison. A pattern was emerging. The island, the sea, the skies, all seemed to follow a rhythm beyond comprehension. Something unseen was observing, testing the limits of human restraint. Every anomaly, every lost signal, every flicker became part of a larger puzzle. Reports from multiple sources began to converge. Radar blips, phantom lights, strange magnetic disturbances. Each event mirrored another from days before. The same singular disappearance logged across different ships and flights. Officers compared notes in hushed tones. The pattern could not be ignored. Something connected these events, a motif, an invisible presence threading through every observation. Each man sensed it, yet could not name it. Even local folklore began to echo the pattern. Villagers spoke of watchers in the jungle, spirits guarding or punishing. Stories of lights dancing over the water, shadows moving between trees. Soldiers dismissed these tales outwardly, but privately admitted to witnessing odd phenomena. The convergence of fact and legend became undeniable. What was once dismissed as coincidence now seemed intentional, deliberate, almost sentient. Across Washington, analysts noticed similar patterns. Interference corrupted messages, unexplained anomalies. Reports from intelligence and reconnaissance fed into one another. A rhythm of the unknown repeated. Some officers joked nervously about ghosts' system. Others shivered quietly, sensing that the world itself seemed alive. Every anomaly seemed to follow a rule, a hidden order. Yet the order was invisible, impossible to predict. In the skies, pilots reported flashes that anticipated their own path, cameras capturing shapes before the pilot could even see them. Logbooks noted the anomalies meticulously. Words like fate unknown and unexplained occurrence multiplied. Crewmen below felt a parallel tension. Every flicker of light, every distant shadow, every strange sound fit into the same haunting pattern. The motif stretched across land, sea, and air, testing every human observer. Even during moments of normal activity, the motif persisted. Ships patrolling children, playing in villages, soldiers moving warheads. Lights in the jungle appeared at the edges of vision. Shadows crossed paths unnaturally. Instruments occasionally hummed or failed. It was as if some invisible observer synchronized events, a hidden choreography across the island and surrounding waters. The tension of anticipation became palpable, almost alive. Stories circulated among crews and pilots. Lights that vanished instantly, echoes that had no source, shapes that defied explanation. Some whispered of phantom watchers or sentinels testing them. The pattern repeated too consistently to be random. Fact and folklore intertwined. Every unexplained occurrence reinforced the sense of an invisible hand, guiding, testing, observing. The motif became a character itself, one that demanded recognition. Even the smallest events took on weight. A lost message, a flicker on radar, a shadow in the mist. Each anomaly connected to the next, forming a chain that could not be broken. Sailors, pilots, and officers began to act cautiously, aware that every move, every glance, every decision was observed. The Caribbean had become a stage, the world a pawn. Every heartbeat synchronized with the rhythm of the unknown. Patterns echoed through history. Analysts compared notes with past incidents. Unexplained vanishings, phantom lights, ghostly echoes. The motif transcended this single crisis. The same signature had appeared in other conflicts: Vietnam, Korea, the Atlantic. A repeating signature of observation, testing, and restraint. The Cuban Missile Crisis was both unique and familiar. The invisible observer, whatever it was, had left its mark before. And as tension mounted, the bridge between reality and legend solidified. Fact and folklore interwove. The world seemed poised on the edge of revelation. Every anomaly, every shadow, every unexplained signal prepared the stage for the coming crescendo. The motif, the rhythm of the unknown, threaded through every layer of observation. Every participant became aware. The stakes higher than any man could articulate, and the world continued oblivious, waiting. The Caribbean held its breath. Every ship, every pilot, every observer suspended between vigilance and fear. Radar blips danced unpredictably. Shadows slipped across the water. Instruments failed at the most critical moments. Messages vanished mid-transmission. Some pilots swore they saw figures moving beneath the canopy, yet no one could confirm what they were. The air was thick with tension, every heartbeat amplified. Every glance over the horizon weighed heavier than the last. On board the destroyers, sailors felt the invisible weight of unseen eyes. Every light flicker, every sonar echo seemed deliberate. Logs meticulously recorded unexplained occurrences. Phantom vessels appeared and vanished, leaving only questions. Crew members whispered of ghost sentinels guarding the waters. Instruments hummed erratically, compasses wavered. Sleep came in fits haunted by flashes of shadows and lights. The tension was a living presence threading through the metal and machinery. Above the island, U-2 pilots traced the missile installations with obsessive care. Cameras clicked, capturing silhouettes beneath the dense jungle. Some film rolls returned blank. Others revealed shapes that defied understanding. Flashes of light darted along the tree line. Magnetic disturbances interfered with instruments. Logs repeatedly noted singular disappearance of equipment and signals. Pilots questioned reality. Were they witnessing mere anomalies or something deliberate? Something alive? Testing their perception. In Washington, the Situation Room hummed with anxious energy. Advisors debated options. Every plan weighed against the possibility of catastrophic escalation. Intelligence analysts cross-checked images logs and satellite feeds. Some messages were delayed, others corrupted. Certain channels ceased operation without explanation. The systems meant to clarify reality became part of the enigma. Every decision rested on incomplete information. Every choice potentially fatal. A quiet dread settled over the room. Palpable, inescapable. On the island, Cuban and Soviet soldiers labored under the hot sun. Warheads shifted into hidden silos. Cranes cast long shadows across the jungle floor. Lights flickered along paths that led nowhere. Locals whispered of figures that appeared and vanished. Soldiers dismissed these stories publicly, yet privately admitted to seeing the unexplainable. The jungle seemed alive. Moving, watching, hiding secrets. Ordinary life persisted alongside extraordinary peril. And every glance carried weight. Night fell across the Caribbean. The sea reflected stars that seemed to flicker in rhythm with distant anomalies. Shadows stretched unnaturally across decks. Lights blinked where no installation existed. Logs cataloged each event meticulously, every anomaly noted. Crewmen spoke quietly of phantom vessels and fleeting shapes. The line between reality and folklore thinned. Sailors, pilots, and officers shared a liminal space, the world on the brink yet oblivious. Pilots reported magnetic disturbances and flashes that anticipated their movement. Cameras jammed at critical moments. Film returned blank or showed fleeting, impossible shapes. Orders forbade engagement. Yet every flight felt like walking a knife's edge. Logs recorded fate unknown. The motif repeated across different observations. Shadows, lights, movements that defied explanation. A sense of being watched pervaded air and sea. The tension was palpable, almost alive. Crew members aboard ships noticed subtle irregularities. Instruments stuttered. Compasses wavered. Lights appeared where no installation existed. Sonar picked up echoes with no source. Diaries later revealed the haunting nature of those nights. Shadows moving independently. Lights that seemed to anticipate observers. Communications blacked out at moments that demanded action. Everyone operated in a liminal state. Fact and folklore merged. Tension became a sentient companion. Even small events carried weight. A lost message, a radar blip, a fleeting shadow. Each anomaly connected to the next, forming a chain that could not be broken. Officers and crew moved cautiously, aware that each step-glance decision was observed. The Caribbean became a stage, every heartbeat synchronized with the rhythm of the unknown. The line between myth and reality vanished. Every observer, pilot, sailor, officer, civilian carried a fragment of the unknown. Radar blips and shadowy movements intertwined with whispered legends. Communications disappeared, equipment failed. Fact and folklore converged. The Caribbean, the skies, and the island became a theater of suspense. History hung on a knife's edge. Every breath, every heartbeat, every observation could tilt the world toward catastrophe. And in that silence, an unspoken question lingered. What might have happened if restraint had failed? The tension had reached its peak. October nights over the Caribbean were silent yet heavy with anticipation. Radar screens flickered erratically, blips appearing and disappearing. Some signals rational, others defying all explanation. Pilots in U-2 planes scanned the jungle with binoculars, cameras clicking relentlessly. Some film rolls returned blank. Others revealed shadows that shifted as if alive. Messages sent to Washington vanished mid-transmission. Instruments failed at critical moments, each failure amplifying the dread aboard every ship and aircraft. Sailors whispered of phantom vessels glimpsed fleetingly across the waves. Lights flickered in impossible patterns. Shadows moved independently of wind and waves. Logs recorded unexplained occurrences and singular disappearances. Compasses wavered. Sonar returned echoes with no source. Every heartbeat seemed magnified. Every movement became deliberate. Sleep came fitfully haunted by flashes of shadows, glimmers of light, and whispers in the metal corridors. The tension was a living thing, threading through men, machines, and water alike. On the island, Cuban and Soviet soldiers worked under watchful skies. Massive warheads shifted into hidden silos. Cranes cast long, ominous shadows. Lights appeared along the edges of the jungle. Figures moved where none should be. Soldiers dismissed these occurrences publicly, but privately admitted to glimpsing things they could not explain. The jungle seemed alive, breathing, shifting, hiding secrets from every observer. Ordinary life continued, children playing, markets bustling, but every glance carried unspoken fear, the extraordinary pulsing beneath the ordinary. Above, reconnaissance flights reported sudden magnetic anomalies. Cameras jammed at the most critical moments. Film rolls sometimes blank, sometimes revealing fleeting shapes in impossible positions. Pilots logged every anomaly meticulously. Words like fate, unknown, and singular disappearance multiplied. Every observation hinted at something deliberate, something aware of being watched. The sky itself seemed to conspire. Each flash, each shadow, a test of vigilance and restraint. On the fleet, officers studied reports with mounting unease. Communications failed intermittently. Some messages returned altered. Others disappeared entirely. Patterns emerged across radar, sonar, and pilot observations. The same motif repeated. Fleeting lights, vanishing vessels, shadows shifting against the wind. Crewmen whispered of ghostly watchers testing them. The line between reality and legend thinned. Fear and folklore became inseparable. Every heartbeat was synchronized with the tension surrounding them. At night, the Caribbean waters mirrored stars that seemed to pulse in rhythm with distant anomalies. Shadows stretched unnaturally across decks. Lights blinked where no installation existed. Crewmen spoke in hushed tones of phantom ships and fleeting shapes. Logs cataloged each anomaly, each unexplained occurrence carefully noted. The border between myth and reality dissolved. Sailors, pilots, officers all moved within a liminal space, the world poised at the edge of disaster. Pilots described flashes of light that seemed to anticipate their path. Equipment faltered precisely when action might have been required. Orders forbade engagement. Yet each mission felt like navigating a knife's edge. Logbooks repeatedly noted fate unknown. The motif repeated itself across multiple observations. Shadows, lights, and movements defied explanation. A sense of unseen eyes pervaded the skies and sea. The tension was almost sentient, alive. testing every human nerve. Even the smallest anomalies carried weight. A lost message, a blip on radar, a fleeting shadow across the water. Each observation connected to the next, forming an unbroken chain of uncertainty. Officers and crews moved cautiously, aware that every step, every glance, every decision was being observed. The Caribbean had become a stage, every heartbeat measured against an invisible rhythm. Myth and fact intertwined seamlessly. Reports from Washington added to the chaos. Analysts struggled to reconcile corrupted feeds, conflicting images, and missing messages. Every decision carried unprecedented risk. Every potential miscalculation could trigger catastrophe. Even the most seasoned officers admitted sleepless nights, haunted by visions of flashes, shadows, and the consequences of error. Logs recorded anomalies meticulously, yet the palpable dread could not be captured. The stakes were beyond measure. Every observer, pilot, sailor, officer, civilian, carried a fragment of the unknown. Radar blips, shadowy movements, and whispered legends converged. Communications disappeared. Equipment failed. Fact and folklore merged into a tangible tension. The Caribbean, the skies, and the island became a theater of suspense. History balanced on a knife's edge. Every breath, every heartbeat, every observation could tip the world toward catastrophe. And in the silent moments between events, an unspoken question lingered. What might have happened if restraint had failed? The Caribbean waters lay calm once more, yet the silence was heavier than any storm. Ships patrolled as they always had. Pilots returned from flights that revealed both nothing and everything. Radar and sonar hummed with quiet persistence. Some signals vanished, others returned altered. Every observer, sailor, pilot, officer felt the echo of tension linger long after the crisis passed. Shadows of events, of possibilities, remained in the mind. The invisible hand of restraint still haunting memory. In Cuba, the jungle returned to ordinary rhythm. Soldiers carried out their routines. Children played in dusty streets. Markets buzzed with commerce and conversation. Yet in quiet corners, stories persisted, of lights that moved against the wind, of figures that vanished without a trace. Folklore whispered alongside fact, suggesting a presence unseen, testing the limits of observation, and perhaps of human will. Back in Washington, analysts pored over the declassified files. Some anomalies remained unresolved, some messages never recovered. Patterns hinted at more than coincidence. Histories would record missiles, negotiations, stand-down orders, but not the lingering shadows, the whispered questions, the what-ifs that never left the mind of a nation. The tension had passed, yet its mark remained, an invisible residue of near catastrophe. Crewmen and pilots would later recount nights of fear and wonder. Lights that appeared and disappeared, shapes that moved in impossible ways, instruments that failed at the worst possible moments. Diaries and memoirs preserved these memories, blending fact and the uncanny, leaving an impression that the world was larger, stranger, and more fragile than anyone could have imagined. Even ordinary life carried echoes of the event. Conversations paused at the mention of the island. Children's laughter seemed louder against the backdrop of silence, and every glance toward the horizon was weighted with memory. Some wondered if the Caribbean itself remembered, if the waters carried the imprint of fear and restraint, and of decisions that balanced civilization on a knife's edge. The patterns observed, lights, shadows, vanishing signals, continued to be discussed in hushed tones. Scientists, historians, and sailors alike debated the unexplained. Some called it coincidence, some the hand of fate, others a lingering presence. Whatever it was, it left an enduring impression, a reminder that the unseen can shape events as much as any human hand. Time passed, treaties were signed, missiles removed, crises averted, yet the stories persisted of near misses, phantom movements, and whispered anomalies. The folklore of that October mingled with the records of history, each reinforcing the other. Every account carried a warning, a question, a shadow that refused to vanish completely. Even now, decades later, the Caribbean sky and waters evoke the tension of those days. Pilots and sailors who survived recall the strange lights, the vanished signals, the anomalies that defied explanation. Historians ponder what might have been, what could have occurred if restraint had faltered. The narrative of the Cuban Missile Crisis is both clear and incomplete, fact and legend intertwined, a story that cannot fully be contained in records alone. We are left with questions. Could humanity have held back the edge of catastrophe, or did something unseen intervene, guiding decisions, testing nerves? The shadows of October 1962 linger across water, sky, and memory. The world moved forward, yet the echoes remain, a reminder of how close we came and how much remains unknown. You have just witnessed another dossier from classified history. If you wish to uncover more hidden stories, subscribe and continue the journey. The shadows are always waiting. The unknown never fully revealed.